This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
Hello and welcome back to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we like to talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I am a well-sugared up sugar boy because I have had nothing but candy this morning and tea with way too much sugar in it. So welcome back,
Did
boys
you
and
eat
girls.
your 2 jelly beans and half cup of Mountain Dew?
I did. I would do it again.
Oh my God. Hello, I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today I am a sick sinusitis boy.
No.
Oh God. I think I was hoping it was just cold, and now I think it's turned into, then I think it was a viral sinusitis. But no, I think right now it's bacterial, so I'm on my way to get antibiotics.
But don't you worry, dear listener. Michael's going to be editing out all of that sniffling and slurping and the dripping that we're...
Well, I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I'm a little sick boy. I have a cold. I'm not as sick as Dan, but I am rejoicing. It's jelly bean season. The farmers' stalls are filled with all beans of every color and flavor, and it's a great time.
Yeah.
I live for jelly bean season.
This means I'm picking up jelly beans from all over the floor.
Are they like Legos? Are they like caltrops?
No, I think he thinks he can plant them and he'll get jelly bean trees in the carpet or something.
That'd be amazing.
You can, Trevor, if you find the right spot.
If you just believe hard enough.
My 5 and I'm
Thanks, guys.
jelly bean chili.
Hi, my name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I suppose if we're leading off with our medical maladies, I am a wheezy asthmatic asthma boy. Maybe unconfirmed.
He's debatably wheezy asthmatic asthma.
See Patreon for details.
And yeah, exactly. If you want to hear more about that scintillating story, see our behind the scenes on Patreon.
How can they resist?
What a selling point. Oh, speaking of which, Dan and I have recorded our Chaser Chat, and I keep forgetting to edit it. So I will. I'm saying it now. That will be up this week, probably later in the week, so we don't walk on top of the episode. But yes. Speaking of which, thank you to our patrons on Patreon for helping support the show. Very generously giving their money to help us pay the editor. That's me. I put a lot of side time into editing the show and the Patreon content and the other stuff. And thank you to Bigger City for sponsoring the episode. And thank you to Trevor set up our partner page on the website.
Yeah.
That's
I realized that last
thank
Tuesday,
you to Trevor
before I went to bed, and I'm like, I said I would do the partner page, and that's going to be in the episode.
Oh, that's what you were doing. Oh, he was nuts about that. Yeah.
Welcome to my life. I try to edit the episodes on Monday nights now, but if that doesn't work, it's Tuesday night. I'm up late, and of course, I have early things to do Wednesday morning every week. It's a bad time. Don't be like me. Don't procrastinate. We also have we still got that affiliate going with Bearskin, where you can get some sexy, delightful, comfortable underwear. You can use our promo code BigFatGayPod, all one word, for 15% off. It helps us. It helps.
How much off, Michael?
15% off.
That's amazing.
15%.
I have been so excited that we finally have a promo code, because that was like a joke we made very early on in the show. And I was hoping that we would get to pick the promo code, because I think there's an episode called Promo Code Fat.
Yeah, something like that.
What do you want to tell people our promo code for their 15% off?
Big Fat Gay Pod, all one word. You can also find all of that stuff on the partner page, as we mentioned earlier. We're going to start aggregating all of those things so that they're easier to find. If you ever, down the road, lightning strikes and you're like, holy shit, I need a mattress. I should use that Big Fig thing. Where do I find it? BigFatGayPod.com. Go to the partners page. It's all there. Okay. Now that that's all out of the way, we have, hot on the heels of our all mailbags episode, we got a mailbag to start off with.
Yay. So I was having a conversation about a completely unrelated podcast topic with my financial planner. And he is a friend and a fan of the podcast. Oh. And he had a couple of really interesting things to say about our piece on scams.
Oh.
And so, yeah, he had a couple of feedbacks. One is that if you use a credit card, and I realize not everybody has a credit card, but if you use a credit card for these purposes, usually the credit card company will go to bat for you. So if you, for example, you bought a piece of the Mojave Desert, you realize actually you didn't, you can dispute it with your credit card company, explain the situation. They usually want you to have tried and document that you tried to work it out with the vendor. Mm-hmm. But if they will, it is in their interest to rule in your favor. I recently had a dispute with my card, and we had a doctor that charged us way too much, and I just pushed the dispute button. And what they do is they pending dispute. You have 90 days to resolve it. They just took it off my credit card, like provisionally, and then they allow 90 days for you to work through it. In many cases, especially in the case of fraud, they are more than happy to get rid of that stuff because they don't want to do fraudulent business. It's bad for them. It loses them customers.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, so Dan, what do you think about this? And he started telling me about that he's been looking into hydrogen water, which is that classic, could be true, could be crap.
What?
Yeah. So what hydrogen water is hydrogen, H2. So it's not combustible. It's stable. It's H2. Hydrogen dissolved in water.
Okay.
So, and why would you do that? Well,
yeah, why?
Why would you do? Well, so allegedly it increases, it's an antioxidant, basically. It helps the body remove all the oxidants. Okay. So, but does it work, and does drinking hydrogen help, right? So there have been studies. The problem with the studies, as usual, is anything in the US that's about health is fueled by money. Well, there's not a lot of money in hydrogen water, so there's not a lot of studies in hydrogen water. And if you know anything about the health food business, the last thing they want is proof, because then you can't, because then you have an answer.
Yeah.
See
Weight Watchers later in this episode. You'll see why.
Yeah, no, you don't want studies. Studies are the death if you're trying to sell a health food product, because then you have to because as long as you can say it may be helpful, as opposed to it is not helpful, or it may be helpful, then and
as long as you can just get away with, we believe that.
Well, or studies indicate that it could be in some cases, possibly when the moon is right. Okay, so basically that's what's happened here.
I mean, I feel like it's like the alkaline water.
Alkaline water.
I was curious if the alkaline water ever did anything.
I met a lot of people who were really into alkaline water, and I heard everything from it curing acid reflux to it curing cancer.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Can I go with this?
All of these things,
the power of placebo is a wonderful thing.
I was just going to say. So here, let me explain. What if I told you that alkaline water improved the acid reflux in 1/3 of people who took it? You say, wow, that's not bad.
Yeah.
The problem is, so does sugar water. So does a sugar pill. Anything that's a placebo also has a 1/3 positive effect. Well, and there's also something called the nocebo effect, where people, if they don't believe in something, it won't work for them. And here's the thing. Even if it is the placebo effect, so what?
Yeah, if it works.
If it works, do it.
So what?
Results are results, whatever the reason. I feel like I had that last year, but it was the what's the word, psychosomatic symptoms with sleep apnea. Because I was experiencing sleep apnea symptoms, but I was so in my head about maybe having it that it just became the story. And I definitely am now very aware that I'm prone to psychosomatic symptoms if I obsess over things, which I never do. You shut up. No,
Michael, you have to obsess about good things and imagine getting stronger.
I'm
We're all going to nod lovingly at Michael and move on to our pop culture segments, shall we?
Okay, please, God.
So Washington Post has a story, Oprah Winfrey to exit Weight Watchers board, a blow as weight loss drugs surge.
Yeah.
I just like picturing Oprah having her cardboard box of her desk in one hand and her wheelbarrow full of fat as she's like trying to leave the offices, and no one's really helping her because they're mad that she's leaving.
This is a really interesting story.
So Oprah has been on the board of Weight Watchers for 8 years, and she is leaving as they are shifting and struggling with like the competition of weight loss drugs and are trying to pivot to weight loss drugs. Mm-hmm. And it is just a very interesting story to, there's a lot to unpack here, I feel like.
Yes, I'm ready to unpack it. Yeah. So it's actually important how she got the shares. So she was a customer, decided she would invest in this. She bought a 10% stake at $43 million or something. Yeah. So she this is in 2015. And so she ran for the board. She got on the board because who doesn't want Oprah Winfrey on their board?
Yeah.
And so, okay. And what happened to Weight Watchers, soon to become WW, is it wasn't just Ozempic. They've been losing money for a while, and they've been losing it to apps. They've been losing it to the body positivity movement. They've been losing it to a lot of things. So I think it was just that the weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, that gave them a weight. Like they can jump on that bandwagon like every single, like I think even Zoom is going there too. Or what's it called? Noom.
Noom.
Noom is going there too eventually. Everybody's trying, because if you don't have that, people are looking at you like, well, why would I do your program when I can just get a drug?
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing that really caught my eye. The article they've sort of collapsed two different things. So as Trevor said, the share price dropped when she left the board by like 27%. But she didn't just leave the board. She is donating her shares.
Yeah, she's bailing completely.
She's bailing. And rather than taking the profit, or rather than creating the capital gain or loss, she is donating the shares, which is effectively for her the same thing as taking the loss.
Yeah.
Tax-wise, but that's another matter. So she's donating the shares, which are probably at a lower value now. And she's given them to, like, she's donating to, I think, the African American Museum and things like that.
Yeah.
That's a positive for them. That's great. But the thing is, bailing on the shares is, I think, what created that 27% drop in share price.
Right. So yeah, it's an interesting, it's not chicken or egg. It's just like a weird way to report the story, because they end on her donating the shares.
Yeah, and they're completely different things. Not running for the board is completely different than getting rid of your shares. Those are two independent activities, you know?
Yeah. For me, it was a bit of a tough read, because first of all, she said she would continue working with the company, which, what does that mean? Like, working with in what capacity? They don't specify.
No.
But the reason is she wants to elevate the conversation around recognizing obesity as a chronic condition, working to reduce stigma, and advocating for health equity.
And it's right there. It's right there. You cannot reduce stigma by saying we are diseased.
Mm-hmm.
But you're reducing stigma because we're diseased.
It's basically, it's not our fault that we're defective, is the whole argument of that, you know?
Yeah.
It's not our fault.
It's kind of like in Hunchback of Notre Dame, where it's like, be nice to him. He's a disfigured monster.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, but excuse me.
Yeah. Sorry. It's we haven't really talked very much about Oprah on the show, because I feel like most of Oprah's newsworthy stuff happened well before we started the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is an interesting thing to point out.
She is the face of the past generation's weight loss journey. You know, like, if there is anyone that's synonymous in the United States, at least, with Weight Watchers, it is Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, I think also the very public yo-yo, like the one of the, I think, the most visible weight cycling things, and
apparently also had hypothyroidism.
Yeah, but that never gets reported for some stupid reason. Like, oh, it's because she's fat.
Right, that you have to get rid of. And one of the things, once you treat hypothyroidism, it's typically one of the symptoms that goes away is weight gain / the inability to lose weight. And so you treat it, and suddenly you can, drop a bunch of weight.
And I think that's a lot of my message. Because people are like, well, how can you say being fat is healthy? It's like, no, you've conflated two things. Look, it's not that being fat is a health tonic. It's not that being fat is necessarily neutral. but it can be. It's that that people keep looking at weight or body fat as a cause rather than as a sign of something else, which could be a sign of genetics. It could be a sign of hypothyroidism. It could be a sign of a lot of things. It could be completely normal for that individual.
Mm-hmm.
But to keep treating it's like, it would be like if we said that runny noses was the cause of asthma.
Mm-hmm.
Or runny noses was the cause of bronchitis, because every time we look at bronchitis, we see runny noses as a previous condition. And it's like, oh, so runny noses? No, it's just a symptom of something, right? So it's associated with.
I think also just the notion that you should be nice to fat people. You should treat fat people, like fat patients, with respect, even if they are not coming to you to lose weight. Is I feel like that's not that hard of a concept to just swallow.
Yeah.
And even if you think, okay, obesity is a disease, most of the time, if someone comes to you, if someone has cancer and they are like, I don't want to treat this, doctors aren't going to be like, well, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like from the doctor perspective, it's sort of this washing your hands of the situation thing where it's like, oh, well, you don't want to treat this obesity? Well, then fine. Your health is your health. And they kind of I'm done. I'm out. Why would I bother treating the rest of you if you're just refusing to be healthy?
The thing that I think is healthy for us to keep in mind is that comes from the fundament. If they do that, it's because they see your fatness as the baseline to all issues in your life.
Exactly. It's the underlying assumption.
If you are not willing to deal with your baseline, you are unworthy of care.
Yeah. It is the underlying assumption that fat causes all problems.
Yes.
But that's a bias that they can't understand until it's really pushed under their face. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, I guess don't let the door hit you on the way out, Oprah.
Bye. In much more positive, uplifting, fun news, in W Magazine, we have an article about Mean Girls star Jaquel Spivey on creating a new Damian for the Mean Girls musical movie, which just came out in January. I didn't even hear. I feel kind of bad because I love Mean Girls and I love Tina Fey, and I would have totally watched this.
The marketing around the movie was very strange, and that there was very little of it. And a lot of the trailers didn't make it clear it was a musical. There was a lot of dancing and stuff, but there was not a lot of the music from the show.
I thought this was a reboot of Mean Girls, and I thought I heard there was a musical coming. I thought it was coming next year or something.
Well, I think the confusion is that when you have the original film, the musical on stage, and the movie musical all
in circulation.
All in circulation. Thank you. Yeah, you can see any of those. You don't know what they're promoting because they all look the same.
So the point of the story is that, so if you haven't seen Mean Girls, it's a really fun movie starring Lindsay Lohan, and as one of Lindsay's best friends, one of Katie Heron's best friends, is a character named Damian, who is gay, I think specifically. Not just, he's a gay character played by Daniel Frances in the 2004 movie. Really out and proud, but not in a performing, I have to entertain people way, but just in a, this is who I am and I'm not going to apologize for it way, which was incredibly empowering for a lot of gay kids watching this. Oh, and he's fat. He's a plus size person.
A fat gay in high school at the time this came out. And actually, I know this is one of those things where everyone says Mean Girls was based on their high school. It wasn't based on my high school, but it's based in the area that I grew up.
Oh, cool.
It's very there's a whole thing about at the end, Katie's boyfriend is going to Northwestern. They talk about the pancake house, which is a huge thing at my high school, is because there's the pancake house nearby. It's
really,
it actually is. I know everyone says this, but it actually is.
So at any rate, Jaquel Spivey, he's 24 years old. He graduated college in 2021, which makes me feel pretty anxious. And was immediately cast in the Pulitzer Prize winning musical A Strange Loop, which we have talked about on the show before, when he made his Broadway debut. Yeah. And then got nominated for a fucking Tony for that show. Holy shit, what a start. And then is immediately, as soon as the show wraps, got called by Tina Fey to play Damian in the Mean Girls musical movie. So the Mean Girls musical was already on Broadway. It was already a success. And then they say, let's make the musical into a movie from the original movie. And he immediately went into that. And
so that's what he's cast in.
Yeah. And that's what he's cast in. And it just came out recently.
So there's a quote that Jaquel Spivey says in this article. He says, I feel like sometimes we have to perform our queerness because I think that's what keeps us safest. It keeps you safe when you're entertaining someone. Yeah. And Damian, he's referring to his character. Damian is like, I am me. I happen to be queer. I happen to be plus size, but none of this is for your entertainment. This is my entertainment. You're in my show.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And that just very much embodies the character. It's coming to Paramount Plus. They don't say exactly when, but apparently it made $83 million, which is, for a movie like that, is solid. I don't know if it was not exactly a smash success, but regardless, if you want to check it out and check out Jaquel, I am very excited to watch this. I can't wait.
You know what? I think it's time.
Yeah,
Summon that eagle, boys. Summon that eagle.
Do it.
Fat Watch 2024.
Now, is this a situation where, the journey could have been so much easier if we had just summoned the eagle from the start and dumped the ring into the mountains?
I'm telling you, these eagles could have taken us to our main topic for years, and we have never taken advantage of this.
Never once.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we got for Fat Watch today? This is
from San Diego Magazine. We have an essay.
Finding Home in My Body by Drew Sitton.
And can I just say, having been born not quite born, but raised in San Diego, it's always been kind of a conservative town. So for an essay about finding peace in your body as a plus size queer person, that's a lot from San Diego Magazine.
There was actually another kind of like fat essay from San Diego Magazine. I don't know what's going on. Who's in San Diego Magazine, but thank you, whoever editor you are.
Yeah.
So Drew is a gender non-binary person, assigned female at birth, and has been transitioning, and is exploring the idea of how oftentimes trans stories are really reduced down to the tropes of, before and after, before transition, unhappy, miserable, ugly, after transition, happy, wonderful. And a lot of times that's kind of summarized in photos and and even in articles like this, it might look a certain way. And Drew wanted to kind of explore the idea that the journey is just as valid as the destination.
Yeah.
And in doing so, found a friend of the podcast, Spencer Pablo, who is however chubby on Instagram, which he does like all of these amazing photo shoots with fat people. Trevor did a photo shoot a couple years ago. And so Drew found Spencer and was like, I want to do this. I want to, I'm mid journey at the moment, but I want to still almost find out what my traits are because there's not a lot of masculine and fat,
I think one of the points of the article, as you're mentioning, is that there are so frequently fat men are desexualized or demasculinized.
Yeah.
And so this is an interesting, I guess, juxtaposition, I'm going to say, of, transitioning towards a fat, masculine presenting body.
Yeah.
What does that journey look like? And how does that echo like where some people live, anyway?
And what's the reality of the feeling of it? Not just this like kind of like put on like overly joyful like grin of like, look, I made it, everybody, but just like what's the reality of how I feel now? What are my actual traits? And they have this great, they open with this great kind of scene, which is Spencer taking the photo and telling Drew, trace the scruff that's coming in on your jawline, feel it. What does it feel like to you? What emotions come up for you when you do that?
So the camera can see it. Yeah.
So the camera can see it. And so it's coming from this place of authenticity instead of almost like a, put on. And not to say that there is no joy for trans people at the end of the rainbow. Not saying that at all, but just that sometimes the tropes can be reductive and that this is a maybe more realistic look at that journey.
Mm-hmm.
But we really appreciate Drew sharing their story and Spencer, of course, for taking amazing photos of fat people.
Mm-hmm.
Really worth checking out. And if you haven't seen However Chubby's Instagram page, definitely go check it out.
At However Chubby.
Okay. All right.
So I think Michael should set up this week's main topic.
Yeah. So this was, it is very rare when I walk in the door with the main topic, but this one is particularly relevant to me as somebody who's dealt with, a lot of the typical chaser body image issues for basically my entire life. The last 2 years have been a weird experience of, random health and medical maladies, none of which seemed particularly none of them went away and none of them made sense. And I didn't know what was happening. And this involved weight gain in conjunction with not being able to exercise due to injuries that were happening way too frequently. Eventually, was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, call back to Oprah, which is genetic, runs in my family, not unexpected, much preferable to a lot of the other things that were pitched as might have, been wrong with me. But the upshot is that in the last year, I've gained about 30 pounds, and that's on top of, again, not being able to really exercise the way that I like to. And there's a feeling of helplessness to it. This is just the train that I'm on. I can't stop it or jump off of it. It just is how it is. And I know that the last time I weighed, and I think I peaked around 225. And the last time in my life that I was around that weight was 2018, somewhere around there. And I was doing the whole photo of yourself in the mirror to mark the beginning of your weight loss, and then doing the apps, fitness tracker, that kind of stuff. Don, I don't know if you remember during that time period, but that was when we were working out at the gym at my old place in Burbank. And that was a pretty that is the mindset that I was imparted, kind of just growing up with my dad in particular. And so in doing the podcast, I've developed a much healthier relationship with that way of thinking about my body. But it's been one of those things where I've had to kind of stare down the barrel of I don't have a choice in this matter. I'm used to being able to exercise and then lose weight as a result. That's what I'm used to. And if I ever choose to do it, I can. And I have not had control for the last year.
And I just want to say that this is so common, your variety of it right now, this idea of unexplained weight gain, seeming to have no control over it, can't exercise. Just that is so very common. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is allied to that. But just that, as specific as it is very widespread.
Yeah. I get why, for me, it was a little strange because it almost, I think, again, having done the podcast for as long as we have, helped immensely, because I kind of got to this place of it is what it is. We have a lot of mirrors in this house. We didn't install them. They're just here. The master bathroom has the closet, an L-shaped closet with sliding doors on both sides, and the sliding doors are mirrors.
Yeah.
So you get all the angles of yourself when you walk through the bathroom.
Yeah. And it changes your relationship to mirrors, doesn't it?
Well, and again, I've talked about LA before, but in LA in particular, walking down the street next to all of the car windows that are reflecting you, it's I had to consciously choose not to look into the mirrors that were fucking everywhere in LA. And obviously it's not LA that's the problem. It's my relationship to LA that's causing that. Yeah. But point being, I've been able to come to a place of peace with it, more or less. certainly compared to my past.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Ground taken.
Ground taken.
Michael. One of the things you mentioned is like, when you start, when you hit a certain point, you decide to lose weight, and then you said you started taking pictures and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if after working on the podcast and talking about like diet culture and the way it affects us and the way they try and kind of worm their way into our head, when you as a chaser start to try to lose weight, do you find yourself listening to the advice and the things that we've talked about on the podcast, or do you sort of immediately slip into sort of like the default mainstream ways we've lost weight in the past?
I can catch it. I catch it really quick. It's the mentality.
Right.
Only because of having done the podcast and again, talking to the people we've talked to and doing the research we've done, I can catch the negative self-talk quickly. And I want to distinguish that from choosing to lose weight, because I don't think I have been very conscious about not equating my exercise with the goal of losing weight. I've had to do that because otherwise I just stop exercising because of that kind of toxic, circular logic. And so I don't make the weight loss the point, but in the back of my head, it's always been the side effect that I can take for granted.
That's one of those things I have been curious about our show's effect on the chaser audience is, do they start looking at their own bodies differently, interacting with their body differently than they did before?
Well, and something that Michael brought up in our call for this episode that I think is really key here is, I don't know to what extent chasers feel this. I feel it very acutely. I think Michael, to some extent, I don't know, because you brought it up, is that contract in a chub chaser relationship. There is this contract that you're the fat one and I'm the thin one, or you're the fat one and I'm the not fat one. Mm-hmm. And when the chub chaser couple, when you can't tell which one the chub is, it can be not just for the chaser, but also for the chub, right? We talk a lot about how, if you're in a chub chaser relationship, your chaser doesn't want you to lose weight. Well, I have brought this up a lot of times in my seminars and had a lot of nodding heads when I tell the chubs, well, you wouldn't be so interested in me if I were 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that it does cut both ways, that there are, and I'm not saying you fall out of love with the person. I'm not saying you kick them to the curb, but to say that it doesn't matter and it's invisible is nonsense. Of course it matters. Of course it affects the relationship, because part of the sexual attraction is based on that to some extent, whether it's 1% or 99%, I don't know, but whatever it is.
I'm curious what the chubs on the call have to say about that.
Yeah.
I think there's so much in the case of chasers and stuff, like how the weight gain affects them and how the psychological effects change the dynamic.
Yeah. So that was one thing I wanted to say is I've really started to get that there is whatever your relationship is, the role that you inhabit in your dynamic, particularly if we're talking about sexual dynamic, I've started to really understand that mentality and authenticity in that role and confidence in that role has, at least in our case, way more to do with attraction than physical appearance. Mm-hmm. But as a chaser whose body is changing, I've had to separate that out from, because, if you get really in your head and you get very self-conscious and you get very insecure, you cannot embody a more confident role. You can't, these are incompatible scenarios.
Well, not only that, but just the insecurity will affect the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, automatically. Yeah. And so I make a point, for instance, one of the ways that in my past, prior to this relationship and prior to the podcast, the way that I would have hidden myself would be to sleep with the shirt on. And I did that pretty much always. And in this relationship, I started off very fit. I was very fit for me, at least. I was 180, soccer playing shape, felt great about myself. And the dynamic was sleeping shirtless. And then as I've gained weight, I've made a point to myself to continue to do that, to just just to make a physical exercise out of it, to kind of help mentally link, I don't know, the effort I'm going through to kind of keep my footing and not let myself spiral into insecurity is easy to exhibit in this simple exercise of continue to be, continue to expose my body and not hide it.
Yeah. And I mean, I just also want to echo that, I am not an observer in this. I am a participant because, my body has undergone changes just with aging, with having been a fat kid, with having been like the hot bodybuilder at one point in my life, to being almost 60 now. And my body is definitely not the body I had in my 40s. And you just, and I remember part of what I would go through is like, why is nothing, like I want to stay that hot muscular guy. And it's like, that's not happening. That's not working. And there were no obvious reasons why, like, at least you got hypothyroidism. Thank God for you.
I had to cope with it.
Thank God. I mean, I didn't have any of those. I don't want to say excuses, but explanations, because, in that sense of like, sometimes when you feel, if you have a physical malady and they can't diagnose it, it is so much more frustrating than, oh, you have this.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Because that was most of last year, was not knowing.
Yeah.
And actually getting the diagnosis was such a fucking relief. So I can't even imagine what it feels like to just be floating and have no cause.
Right.
You can identify.
And especially with weight gain or being fat, the default diagnosis is, well, stop being a fat fuck.
Right.
That's the cure in malady,
So I'm curious, Michael, because you've never really been the kind of like thirst trap picture guy.
Okay.
But I think
where's this
there
going?
have been times where you have been more, and I'm curious, do you still ever like take like a hot mirror selfie?
I think I want to clarify Trevor's comment. I don't think he means you weren't hot. I think he means that you didn't take those pictures demonstrating hotness.
Yeah, I got that. But clarity is good for listeners. Yes. I don't, but there's a different reason for that, which is I'm very aware of my own sense of ego and those kind of selfies and stuff. I definitely had many periods in my life where that was like a thing that I love to do. And you can check, I think my Instagram is still up somewhere. You can go scroll back through it and see some of that. And so I have made it a conscious choice not to do that, specifically not to feed my own ego, which it's that double-edged sword of like, I don't know. That's a whole topic we can go into. That isn't.
I kind of want to respond to that because I've had it on both sides, right? So I've posted this stuff like, oh, I look really good in this photo. I'll post that picture, like usually to like a personal ad, like not Instagram or something like that. But then I've also had the reaction where I will look at a picture and I'll go, wow, I look amazing. And I'm not going to post that because I don't want to look too good. No, wait, let me finish that. I don't want to look too good and then not show up like that. Because when the lighting's just right and like I don't think I look so good in that photograph. I don't think I can recreate that in real life.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to post that. Or I know I won't look like that in a month, so I don't want to post that and then have to look like, what.
So I feel like I'm bringing a very different perspective to this conversation in that like the changes I've had between me and lovers have never happened within the confines of a relationship, right? It's always been like we've been together and then years apart and then we meet again and we are farther down our journeys of body changes and reactions ensue, right? So what has happened to me is I have come back together with a lover after gaining weight and they've been overjoyed. I have gotten together with a lover after losing a lot of weight and pretty much felt discarded and ignored, which is upsetting to me because the relationships I've had with exes, with my lovers, has always been very genial, right? I'm a friendly dude. I thought we were friends. And even if we're not fucking, I thought we would at least be friendly to each other. And I have not received that dignity from prior chasers, right?
Any of them?
I would say a majority of chasers that I've associated with, when they meet me at a phase where I have lost weight, some of them have even just cut off communication, right? Just like, oh, you're going in that direction, done. Which to me is very hurtful, right? Now, when I've been rejected sexually by them and still kept friendly, that's been fine, right? I think for a chubby guy who is now being rejected for being too thin can be it can bring a lot of emotions. Right?
Oh, it's a mind fuck. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it's like, on the one hand, like, well, fuck you. Like, I'm still me. On the other hand, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm getting very mainstream, and that can be a good thing. Right. And so maybe it's a compliment, and that can be confusing. Now, I have also been on the flip side of it, where I've encountered a chaser who has gained a lot of weight, expected to be treated sexually, right? And I'm not feeling it anymore.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I feel in those, that's only happened to me like maybe 2 or 3 times. But in those situations, I feel like that has been much more damaging to that guy, no matter what I say, than their rejection of me was. So that's something for, I think, the chubby guys to think about.
Exactly. Yeah.
The journey that the chaser is on can be, they may not have the same defenses. They may not have the same calluses in place as you. And it can be much more like the stuff that you can just take and let roll off your back like water off a duck. The chaser doesn't always have those same tools.
I think that's brilliant, Don. Brilliant.
The journey, the direction that your body is taking you is the direction that society rejects. And so it's, if, you're moving, quote, in giant air quotes, the wrong way, that I think also contributes.
But chubby guys also, just keep in mind, like, you do not owe them anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
You don't have to sleep with them because they were nice to you once.
No.
I've seen some chubby guys fall into that trap.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and I think in both cases, it's unfortunate because, when there's the fat person who's lost weight or the thin person who's gained weight, they now find themselves in this kind of like no man's land of like, the chub that's lost a lot of weight, but they're not really mainstream, or the chaser who's gotten really fat, but they're not really like, they don't really want to do they're not chub for chub, and they don't really want to do the chub for chub thing. But they're also being rejected by the guys. They're attractive, but they're not happy with their own body because it is starting to resembling the bodies that they're attracted to, but they're not attracted to it. And it's a bad place to be.
In line with what Don was saying, Trevor did a great job of highlighting the morass of that, like the betwixt between. I should be happy, but I'm sad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. So, when I've given a lot of seminars on this, I will talk to chubs, or even online. They're like, and they feel so bad. They feel so bad about rejecting a chaser who's gained weight. They feel so guilty because they're fat. Why shouldn't I be able to, like, I'm okay with my body, but why can't I accept his body? And look, you got to cut yourself some slack. You're attracted to what you're attracted to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel guilty for not being attracted to something that is like that. That's just it. Right. And, there's the whole thing about like, well, maybe you should try, and maybe, but I think sometimes that's like, well, have you tried being with women, Michael? It's like, I think there's an element to that to it sometimes too. But what I'm saying is, like, it's okay. And yes, you're right, Don. It is devastating. And I like that what you pointed to were the chase. Like, there was nothing you could say to that chaser to make it okay. Yeah. And I think for a lot of chasers, it's on the other way. Like, there is nothing I can say to that chub where I like you as a person, but now you're too thin for have sex with me. Yeah. Well, there's no good way to say that.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the things. This is what I was thinking about before, and I lost the train. Which is, as chubby guys lose weight, we tend to increase in confidence, right? Because society treats us better, right?
Yep.
That comes across on every level of our being, including sexuality, right? When I'm losing weight and people are treating me well, I become a little bit more sexually adventurous. I don't want to say aggressive because that has certain implications.
Well, but confident, maybe.
Confident. Yeah, confident. That's it. As I get more confident, I get more confident. Yeah.
Wait, sorry. How does that work?
I feel like the trap is opposite for chasers, though.
Yep.
Right? As you gain weight, you start losing the confidence, which actually causes other areas to become less desirable as a sexual partner, which creates kind of a collapse.
Lack of confidence is unsexy, just in general.
In and of itself, but it also leads to other areas of yourself coming apart too.
Yeah. I just feel like I should put a shout out here to the gainers and encouragers, for which this is completely not this, but backwards. Well, topic, it's not a foreign topic, but you'll find a lot of chasers who discover they're gainers. And so the weight gain is like, oh my God, everybody's ragging on me for this weight gain, but it's turning me on. And so there is, not that we need to discuss that, but I just want to put a kind of a flag in that there are plenty of thin people moving to fat bodies, or vice versa. And it doesn't always, it's not a universal what we're talking about, because when you talk about kink, there's a whole other world out there.
The chasers that discover their gainers, it's like that. It makes me, I don't know if anyone will get this, but on the call, but there's a whole thing in SpongeBob where Squidward discovers he likes Krabby Patties, and SpongeBob is like, Squidward, you like Krabby Patties, don't you? And that is very much the chasers just discovering their gainers.
Yeah.
But I think that's connected to chubby guys have learned over the years how to care for our inner selves in this world, right? And then chasers end up, not only are they under the same assault that their chubby their chubby objects of their affections have been going through their life, but now they're the target of it, right?
Mm-hmm. I would take that further. I would say that what you put your finger on there, Don, is that the inability of chasers not being equipped to deal with the world of anti-fat bias, that is responsible for all chaser misbehavior and fucktitude.
Yeah. So if we're to wrap up, I have what is hopefully a helpful bit of advice for anybody going through a similar experience, which is you're not going to get rid. We said this on the last episode, I think also, like, you're not going to get rid of that inner voice, like that inner critic who sees yourself in the mirror and has a reactionary criticism. It's not, I would posit that doesn't go away, but your relationship to what that sounds like absolutely does not have to be what it is.
And case in point is what the example you gave, Michael, of I'm gonna look in the mirrors anyway.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because to be aware of it is to be able to have an impact on it.
Right. So trying to cover it up, avoiding the mirrors, avoiding being undressed in front of a mirror, whatever, that's unhelpful. That's just continuing to stigmatize your experience. Be, to the extent that you can, be and do the same things that you were when you were at your most confident, and you'll move through it. You'll get through it, and other people around you will appreciate your, for lack of a better word, bravery. That comes through as a bit of confidence and a bit of, you may not be fully happy or confident in your body, but it is way, way more advantageous to yourself and your quality of life if you can just do that.
And the thing I would add on to that is absolutely what you just said, Michael. And then from that, particularly if you're having a dramatic body change, allow for the possibility that you're attractive to a new group of people that you either didn't know about or didn't fit in with before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, before we move on to tip and or bit, I do want to put out a very open call to people to respond to this, because I feel like this is a very discussion-based topic.
Especially our chasers, yeah.
Yeah. So please, if you've had any relevant, similar experiences, let us know, and we can keep the discussion going. Do
we have a tip for the day?
We don't. No tip.
We are
Big Fat Gay Pod. Big Fat Gay Pod.
So chasers and chubs, I put out a call for all of you to give your tips to each other.
Whoa.
Oh.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
Don.
Okay.
Just the tip.
We aren't that kind of podcast.
Why not?
We never talk sexually. We have to save that for Valentine's Day.
I
put in the chat a link to the
Krabby Patties.
The SpongeBob, like, you like Krabby Patties, don't you?
That face.
So, as our bit today, we've been talking about our changing bodies and how understanding our changing bodies and focusing on this is important stuff for us to understand. But we are not the only ones who have changing bodies. Though our bodies may change often, our bodies may not change as often as these poor people whose bodies change.
I thought you were going to do a riff on the Braveheart speech. They can never take our bodies, our confidence.
Some of us have bodies that we have to explain once a month during this massive change. And so I figured today we should take the time to focus on our poor werewolf brothers and sisters.
Oh yeah,
who also have changing bodies that need to be focused on.
I mean,
so werewolves have had to deal with changing bodies for many, many years throughout time and history. However, what was our first written work? Our first written evidence or drawn evidence of werewolves in our history? What is the earliest written example of werewolves?
The Bible?
French cave paintings.
What?
I don't think Don heard that.
I'm sorry. Did Trevor just say the Bible?
He did. I loved it.
1. French cave paintings have some figures drawn by Neanderthals that appear to show people turning into wolves. 2. And that's prehistory. I don't have a solid date on that because we're talking thousands of years.
Yeah.
All right. 2. The Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh, where a man is transformed by the goddess Ishtar in 2100 BC. 3. Ancient Egyptians believed a potion could grant the power to transform into various animals for a price in 1800 BC. Or is it actually a fairly recent thing? Grimm's fairy tales contain the first written accounts of werewolves, printed in 1812.
I think the prehistory one. I feel like
you think cave paintings?
I feel like man's relationship to dogs has been a really long, and I feel like that feels related to wolves and the combination of the two. I don't know. That's what I'm going to go for.
We got a little bit of prehistory here.
Yeah, it's tough because I think there's a lot of evidence of the idea of a spirit animal or taking on the attributes of an animal, which could be in the cave paintings. I think I like the second one though, Don. What was the second one?
I'm going to say Gilgamesh.
The Epic of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia.
Yeah, I don't know why that sings to me. It's probably wrong, but what the hell?
Okay. Trevor, you're feeling the same?
I mean, I'm saying Gilgamesh, so it's probably right.
To be clear, according to the rules we've established, when Trevor guesses something and one of us agrees with him, he must be right.
That's correct.
If I remember correctly, that's what. So Dan,
Let's see.
Well, our theory holds firm in that, yes, the Epic of Gilgamesh is the first written evidence we have of lycanthropy.
I did it. I guessed Trevor's answer.
So, Trevor, you're going to have to go last on all of these.
Okay.
Which of the following, according to common mythology, is not a sign of being a werewolf? 1, a unibrow. 2, hairy palms. 3, a lisp. Or 4, a long middle finger.
Lisp.
What?
I'm going to say unibrow.
A unibrow? Okay.
Now I know it's unibrow, damn it.
This is why we have Trevor go last all the time.
The only way okay, I'll say unibrow.
All right. Well, that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Unibrow is, in fact, not the correct answer.
No. See, it wasn't a genuine guess. That's the problem. It was too meta.
Okay.
The lisp is not a sign of being a werewolf, historically speaking.
There you go.
Hairy palms, unibrows, middle fingers, all of these are traits that you could use to find a werewolf. All right. There are lots of beliefs about ways to cure werewolves of their condition. What did the Danish folk believe you needed to do to cure a werewolf? 1, give him a severe scolding. 2,
weight loss therapy.
2, call it 3 times by its Christian name.
Aha.
3, boil it in holy water until its skin comes off.
Wait a minute.
Or 4, feed it the holy wafer used in communion.
I like all of these are funny except for the boiling one.
Well, what gets me about the boiling one is it's like the cure for witches is to drown them.
Right, exactly. If they're a witch, if they drown.
Yeah.
No. They're a witch if they survive.
They're a witch
in
if
which
they
case
survive.
They must be killed.
Yes.
And if they're not a witch, they drown and then they die.
Yeah. Heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah.
I'll go last.
Oh, damn.
I think
I will say that one of these others is a legit cure from a different culture.
Oh, tricky. I'm going to say saying their Christian name 3 times.
All right.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
We have the Beetlejuice solution for Michael.
Well, yeah, so that comes from the Beetlejuice culture. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to go with the boiling and holy water.
Boiling and holy water. Okay,
I mean, because that's my go-to.
We got Christian names. We got holy water. Trevor, what are you feeling?
Christian name 3 times, baby.
Christian name 3 times.
Now this is an actual test of the theory.
This is the legit test of the theory. And unfortunately, our theory has fallen apart.
Oh, no.
Michael and Trevor might have cured a German werewolf with that solution, but not a Danish one.
Damn it.
The Danes, in fact, believe that giving a werewolf a severe scolding is, in fact, the cure.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So basically, public shaming cures werewolfism.
Public shaming cures werewolfism.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
The lisping werewolf is going to be all like, oh,
so sad.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Dan, I put this one on the list specifically for you because in Italy, in Italian, for werewolves that gesture emphatically with their hands.
You mean every Italian?
Yeah. Which of these events might mean you could become a werewolf?
Caspita.
Okay. 1, having a cat sleep in your cradle. 2, sleepwalking. 3, snoring. Or 4, being born on a full moon that is a Friday.
Oh.
I feel like Dan should guess last, even if he doesn't.
Yeah,
know.
Dan's got to go last on this one.
All right.
Trevor, you get no. I'm going to make Trevor go first, just as a weird twist on it.
I'm going to say the Friday full moon.
Okay, we got one for a Friday full moon. Michael,
I want to say sleepwalking, which means it's probably wrong, but I'll go with sleepwalking.
This game brings out so much optimism in Michael. I love it.
I'll say because trivia games has never been my strong suit.
Let's see. Well, my rationale, Michael, is that if I get it right, it clearly was not trivial. No, I'm going with the cat.
Or rather, when you get it wrong, it's always trivial.
Yours is cat in a cradle?
Mine's cat in a cradle.
All right.
Okay.
Gentlemen, you should have gone with Trevor on this one.
Oh,
it's full moon that is a Friday, is a contributing factor to werewolfism.
I really want... Look, some statistics nerd listener out there, go back and aggregate the points won for all 172 of our episodes.
Yeah, that's a fun project for somebody.
Tell us how many. I just want to know how many points Trevor's gotten.
It's got to be Trevor. It's got to be.
It's got to be.
Well, dear listener, do you happen to know how many points Trevor has scored on these? Where could they tell us, Trevor?
Well, we're on Twitter and Instagram as at Big Fat Gay Pod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Write us a review. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigbigpod.
We're so close.
And YouTube, right?
Yes,
music is a
YouTube
thing.
music is a thing now. And Google Podcast is going away in like a month. So just know that if you happen to listen to us there.
Maybe you're a werewolf who's listening and you are offended at the last segment and you're just, it's oh no, it's a full moon. So
watch out.
Well done, sir.
That was adorable, Michael. Michael Willer, resident werewolf.